Hey everybody, Nick here, and this morning I got some disassembly and maintenance for you on this little guy. This is the Three Rivers Manufacturing Nerd. That's right, someone finally named the knife after me. It's a joke, by the way. No evidence that's actually the case. You're so vain, you probably think this song is about you. Anyways, I digress. So taking this little guy apart here, we will see what we got going on. I sort of suspect that they're doing, yep, okay, good. They're doing the same thing as they have with the TRM Atom, as well as the Neutron, where you were able to remove the scales without fully disassembling the knife. That's actually a beautiful thing. I appreciate that very much. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the clip anyways. I don't know that I actually need to accomplish what I need to in terms of the disassembly. But I'll go ahead and do it anyways, just to make sure that, well, you know, take everything fully down. So it should be possible to completely swap the scales out on this guy for another set. I think they've also got some bowling ball carbon fiber scales for it. I'm sorry, marbled carbon fiber scales for it. But nonetheless, I should be able to take this guy fully down without doing anything else here. Or without removing this, but this way, people, if you're swapping the scales later, you know what to do. Is this not coming loose? Is that... Now, okay, here's the big question. $1 million question, if you will, although no one's paying me. We will go ahead and pop this off here at the end. These are wood scales, so I'm being a little careful. I don't want to have the scales, you know, splinter or anything like that. It's one of the reasons I'm using this little plastic spudger tool here to try and kind of encourage this off of there. Here, I'll try it from this angle here. I'll use the lock bar. There we go. That got me some purchase. And now we're lifting it off. That's just tight tolerances then. There's no reason that this couldn't have come off. Yeah. So you can see here that the knife is actually fully assembled still. In fact, it is still a perfectly functional knife, although perhaps ergonomically, well, let's put it this way, that didn't help the ergos. But nonetheless, what we have here is a perfectly fine knife, and now we could just swap the scales around. Like I said, I only have the wood scales for it, so I won't bother with that, but that shows us sort of where we're at here. I forget if I mentioned to you that you can find out more about the tools I'm using for this at nickshabazz.com/tools. And there we go. But anyways, and then we'll go ahead and we'll put those two screws right there. There go the back spaces that are free-floating and not chamfered. The standoffs, that is. So those are right there. And now all I need to do is remove the pivot. That should be just a moment here, and I will have that done. Overall, construction-wise, so far, no surprises. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to the Atom and the Neutron. And that's a good thing, by the way. Those were well-made knives. This one appears to be too. Yeah, we're running on phosphor bronze washers here, as expected. Right now, they are running a little dry, actually, so hopefully we'll be able to improve the action a little bit. Not the action's bad offhand. Why you not want to come loose here, bro? There we go. All right. And we are fully disassembled. Everything is all set here. So let's go ahead and start some cleaning. I'm going to use some 91% rubbing alcohol here to clean this guy off. I am coming. There we go. Fighting my little alcohol bottle here to get what I need. That sounds really, like, depressing, right? Anyways, I digress. Let's go ahead and keep cleaning this guy off. Clean, clean, clean. This is a knife, you know, I have really been a fan of TRM stuff. They've done some stuff that I'm, you know, like, okay, sure. But, you know, the Atom, the Neutron and the Atom have been my knife of the year for the last 2 years. And so this is a knife that I have some high hopes for, so to speak. Not specifically because of the form factor or design or anything like that, but just because the company's been really hitting them out of the park over and over again. In terms of construction here, there's absolutely nothing really shocking, which is good, by the way. I don't feel like I need to be surprised. A little bit of skeletonization on the lock bar. Actually, that might be a, might combine with the relief to give the right amount of tension here. What we can see here, though, is that the pivot is, what we have here is a cutout on the pivot, but it is only mirrored on one side of the scale. So we just need to make sure that as we're putting this guy back together, the D-shaped side of the pivot, the flat part is facing down. That'll be a crucial step in all of this. All right, beautiful. All right, so that's down, and Yeah. Let's go ahead and put this down here. I am just going to make sure that the part that has been rotating against the blade remains doing so. And that's just a tight fit from the feels of it. There we go. Slide that down. Somebody is blowing me up on Discord over there, if you're hearing that. Likely one of my lovely patrons. But I have a Patreon. If you support me on Patreon, this isn't, by the way, meant to be a plug, although it kind of turned out that way. I have a patrons-only Discord server where people can talk about gear and share cursed memes and, you know, so on. Yeah, that was way too much lubrication, but it'll spread around and up into the pivot and whatnot, so I got no beef with that. Oh, the other thing I want to do is put a little bit of lubrication. Actually, I'll just use some of the lubrication that's over here already, right? Put a little bit of lube right in the tent ball path area here. That way, that is a little smoother itself. Alrighty, let's go ahead and put that there. There is always a delicate balance when filming a video of trying to make sure that you shut off all of the other things that are going to make noise. You know, sometimes that works effectively, you know, especially if you've got, like, I don't know, what all would cause, I don't freaking know. Seagulls I can't turn off, unfortunately. But nevertheless, it's always a factor. Okay, did I get the pivot in alignment? Yes, it looks like I have. Magic. Freaking witchcraft. Alrighty. It's not witchcraft. No fingers are running through any hair at the moment. No sly come hither stare. It strips my conscience bare. None of that. That is a Sinatra reference, kids. Ask your parents. Alrighty, let's go ahead and, maybe grandparents at this point. I don't freaking know. I know what you're all thinking. Okay, boomer. I'm a millennial, I swear. Alrighty, let's go ahead and, I've got the pivot is just, you know, barely tightened on there. My goal right now is just to get things in alignment, and having everything, you know, putting Gronk on the pivot ain't going to help me any. So I just as soon do a little bit of, just tighten a little bit. Alright, there is no thread locker here, so I'll go ahead and I'll put a, come on. My goal right now is to spear the back spacer on that screw, and then get everything screwed in while you're not working, bro. There we go, now you're seated. Alright, there's that little guy, and I'm not super tightening that, because I don't want things to be too tight as I'm trying to insert these back spacer screws, or the standoff screws. Like, I swear to you, I do know the difference between a back spacer, and I just used my driver there to align that hole. For the standoff. But I swear to you, I do know the difference between a back spacer and a standoff. I just don't tend to, you know, operationalize that knowledge, if you will. All right, so at this point, though, that is smoother. That's nice. But it's also looser, so let's go ahead and tighten. All right. We are not slip jointing. That's good. Meaning it is still locking up. Let's loosen that just slightly, see if we get any blade play. Honestly, I don't need to do this right now because the pivot is exposed, right? I can still tune the pivot. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that, just so I have a better sense of what's going on with the knife in hand as I'm doing that. So now I just overlay these scales here. And again, use a little tiny bit of thread lock here. Put that through there. Little bunch of T6s. I kind of get it here. They're trying to keep the screws unobtrusive, but I sure do like seeing slightly larger bits. Aesthetics, I suppose, sometimes can win, and for what it's worth, I've had my Atom now for, TRM Atom, that is, for a while, and I do a fair amount of scale swapping on it. Actually, I've got 2 of them, and I've never had a screw head strip out there. They seem to be using good screws, so that's important. But nevertheless, it's a, yeah, it's a thing. Now we'll drop the pocket clip into place. This appears to be the same pocket clip off of the Atom, maybe? Does it? Might be. He says, with hard-hitting journalistic integrity. Freaking, I know. Who knows? Alrighty. So what I'm going to do here is, and I know I've got the clip exactly backwards, but that was just how it needed to go to get things put into place here. Okay, drop that in there. Now I will go ahead and put the other one in. And there we go. Wow, that was smooth. I almost made that look easy. The only finicky part of that is getting these screws oriented and, you know, in place, in position, whatnot. No blade play. Right now, the lockup, or the centering is very, very, very slightly favoring the locks, or rather show side, which usually means the pivot's a little loose. If I tighten the pivot slightly, it's right there, but the action is a little tighter, considering actually, I wonder. Yeah, let me go ahead and do this. Remember all that talk about, I can go ahead and put the scales back on. Well, I can. And that's not actually a problem, but what I am going to go ahead and do is just pop them off very briefly, such that I can access these screws back here. Now that I've put the pivot fully into adjustment, now that I've got the pivot fully tightened down, sometimes it's occasionally helpful to loosen some of the body screws. That lets out any remaining tension, and now I bet when I tighten these guys up, you will see that the centering is, the centering is now absolutely dead nuts on, with the same amount of pivot tension as it was before. This is just a subtle little thing, and for some folks, you never actually care about it. You don't need the centering to be there because, yeah, you don't care. But I do, and so for me, it's actually helpful to do that, and just, you know, it sates my my compulsivities. But yeah, we're dead nuts on. We are running beautifully, and that was easy enough. All right, so there we go. The nerd knife is now prepared for carry by a nerd, and this guy will go in my pocket, and I will begin the process of writing a review for it. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you, and most of all, have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.